Joining me now is Finance Minister Matthias Cormann. Minister, good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us. So first of all, the Prime Minister yesterday talked about pro-growth policies. What will they be?
Well, obviously, as it is safe to do so, and as the health advice indicates that we can reopen sections of the economy that are currently restricted or entirely closed, we would like to do that as soon as possible. But beyond that, the Australian economy, the fundamentals in the Australian economy were very sound going into this crisis, and we of course want them to be sound on the other side of this crisis and to have a very strong bounce back, focusing on our strengths as a globally focused open trading economy, selling as many Australian products and services into markets around the world, but also making sure that domestically we are in the strongest possible position to sell products and services to each other.
Which sectors, which sections are you talking about possibly reopening?
Well, look, I'm not going to preempt these sorts of decisions, that are going to be made in the future. Right now, our resources sector continues to perform comparatively strongly. There will be opportunities, over the next few months to progressively, obviously lift restrictions in other parts of the economy, but I'm not going to preempt the timing or the nature of those decisions at this point.
Would you support a return to broad-scale manufacturing?
Well, where that makes economic sense, of course. We're totally in favour of increased manufacturing in Australia. But clearly, where that makes sense, where we can be competitive internationally, or where there is a clear sovereign need to be self-sufficient, then these are things that we need to continue to explore, of course.
Yeah, I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but manufacturing used to be 13% of GDP. Now it's come down to about 6%. So would you like to see that get back up into double figures again?
These are not things that you can sort of, create by government edict. Clearly, this has got to be in the context of what makes economic sense. In the broad, for us to be more successful in the manufacturing space, we've got to ensure that we continue to lift our productivity and our international competitiveness. There will be some areas where there is an assessed sovereign need, where there might be some other considerations, but in general terms, of course we want to be a stronger, more successful manufacturing country into the future. But in the end, in order to sustainably be able to do that, we need to focus on making sure that we can be as competitive internationally as we possibly can be.
Okay, what about tax reform and deregulation? Are they all big ideas at the moment that you're going to explore?
Well, we will continue to be focused on keeping taxes as low as possible, as high as necessary to fund the necessary services, essential services of government that Australians rely on, but as low and as efficient and least distorting and fair and equitable as possible. We're certainly not focusing on increasing the tax burden on the economy at a time when we want to pursue stronger economic growth and a strong economic bounce back on the other side. When it comes to deregulation, absolutely, we need to make it easier to do business. We need to reduce the cost of doing business in Australia. That is an important part of making sure that we can be internationally as competitive as possible and that we can sell as many Australian products and services around the world as possible.
Minister, the Treasurer has been accused of telling porky pies to the IMF, which says it did take into account the $130 billion JobKeeper package when it released its projections. Should he apologise?
I don't accept that characterisation at all. The Treasurer was making comments based on what he had been advised, and I understand that Treasury is taking that up with the IMF. Treasury certainly understood that IMF had fundamentally concluded its work by about 29 March, and certainly the understanding was that the JobKeeper package hadn't fully been accounted for, but that is a matter that Treasury, as I understand it, is taking up with the IMF as we speak.
Well, the IMF report says that it considered all the relevant information right up until about the 7th of April, which is after that package was announced.
Well, again, as I've just indicated to you, Treasury understood that IMF had fundamentally concluded their work in terms of their economic forecasting on 29 March, and that is a matter that is currently being pursued directly, as I understand it, between Treasury and the IMF.
Okay, Minister, I'm sure you're thrilled to be talking about Malcolm Turnbull at the moment, but he's got a book coming out. He's made some claims in it that I'd like to get your reaction to. He says that either you or Peter Dutton called the PM a Machiavellian plotter who couldn't be trusted. Was that said?
Look, I'm just not going to provide commentary in relation to Malcolm's book. These are events that are a long time ago. I wish Malcolm and his family very well. Sincerely, I wish them all the very best for the future. What I would say in relation to my relationship with the Prime Minister, I have a very strong, positive and productive relationship with the Prime Minister. I've had for a very long time through a whole series of portfolios. We've worked together very closely and incredibly well. When the Prime Minister was in the Treasury portfolio, that was there for all to see at the time. In the social service and immigration portfolio. I mean, we came into the Parliament at the same time back in 2007 and have had a close working relationship all the way through. I leave it to others to provide commentary.
Well, he also said that as PM that you wanted to cut the then Treasurer, Scott Morrison, out of policy decisions. Is there any truth to that?
Well, again, I'm not going to provide commentary on this book. I'm not going to get distracted by it. Our government right now is working to protect people's health, to protect jobs by making sure that we make the right decisions in a public health sense and to deal with this coronavirus-induced health and economic crisis. I'm just not going to get distracted by this sort of stuff. Let me say again, I have a very strong, positive and productive working relationship with the Prime Minister. I had a very strong, positive and productive working relationship with the Prime Minister when he was Treasurer. We delivered 3 budgets together and obviously in the course of all of that, Scott Morrison is the member of our cabinet with whom I've worked with the closest over the longest period of time. Obviously as Treasurer and Finance Minister, you spend a lot of time together putting budgets together. And I think that anyone who knows us knows that we have and continue to have a very strong, positive and productive working relationship.
Are you going to read Malcolm's book?
No, I haven't got time. I'm focused on, as I say, with my colleagues, I'm focused on dealing with the issues in front of us to make sure that we help guide the Australian people through this period in the best possible way so that all Australians have the best possible opportunity to be successful and bounce back strongly on the other side of this crisis.
Not even the executive summary on the inside jacket?
Look, I'm focused on the job at hand.
Right, fair enough. Finance Minister Matthias Cormann, really appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Always good to talk to you.
Well, stay in touch.